My parents paid me $30,000 to have a grandchild. But when my son was born with a rare illness, they demanded a refund and threatened to call the police. I, a 26-year-old female, had a baby about 4 months ago with my husband of 3 years, Keith, who is 27 years old. We did not intend to get pregnant. We were not trying, but when we discovered that we were, we decided to go along with it. My parents were the most excited about it at the time, and ironically, they are the ones who are the least happy about the baby currently. My parents have always loved the idea of having a big family with lots of kids and grandkids. I have 2 siblings, an older brother who is 30 years old, and a younger sister who is 20 years old. My brother has 2 kids of his own, both under 7 years old. Once I got married, my parents began to pester me about having kids, but I did not pay any heed to them. It had barely even been 1 month since my wedding, so I was not interested in having a child so soon. I wanted some time alone with Keith before we had kids, to travel and have our fun, but my parents started pressuring me within a few months of my marriage. They incessantly spoke about the joys of being a parent without mentioning any of the difficulties that came along with it. I ignored them back then because I had no other choice but to put up with it. They had been wonderful parents to all 3 of us, but as we got older, they had become more and more bothersome to have a conversation with because of their weird obsession with our love lives. My brother believed that it was because they were both retired now and did not have anything to do all day, so they decided to obsess over our lives instead. First, they pestered my brother to have kids, which he did because he did want kids of his own at some point. And then, once I got married, they started on me. I had made up my mind that I was not going to let them wear me down, and I would only have kids whenever I thought I wanted to. So I patiently put up with them for the first couple of months. Then eventually I began to tell them that having kids was not in the cards for us at the moment. But I would think about it just to get them off my back. Around 1.5 years ago, they approached me and told me very bluntly that I did not have to worry about the finances of having a baby because they would cover it all for me and were even ready to give it to me up front. They thought that I might have been worried about the financial toll of having a child and so offered to literally write a check for whatever amount I quoted, as long as they would have a grandkid in their arms in the coming months. I did some thinking back then and decided that I was going to take a whopping $30,000 from them for a couple of reasons. Before people start judging me, let me just say that I am a sales associate and my husband is an insurance agent. So if someone is offering us money, you best believe we will take them up on that offer, no questions asked. We do not make a fortune on our jobs, and my parents were offering me a blank check to fill in myself for the future, so that was my first reason to agree to their proposition. Secondly, Keith and I had discussed kids and both of us agreed that we definitely did want them, just not right now. It would happen when it would happen, but we were not going to try on purpose. So I took the money from them, keeping in mind that this money would help us at that moment, and we would have kids whenever we had them, no pressure. It was not technically lying, so I did not feel guilty either. Also, with the way my parents had endlessly been nagging me, taking the money from them actually seemed like a good idea because that would convince them that we were now going to start trying for a baby, and that would finally get them off my back. After I took the money from them, they did ease up on the constant pressure and would only ask if I had news for them instead of their usual have a baby rant every time they visited or I visited them. I did not have any plans on what to do with the money, even though Keith and I had always talked about multiple things, like taking a vacation or just buying expensive things that we had always wanted. We did not end up doing any of that eventually, because I guess our conscience did not allow us to spend the money on anything that did not serve the purpose it was originally intended for. It would just feel dishonest, and we did not want that for ourselves, so we kept the money aside and did not spend it at all. And as fate would have it, we ended up getting pregnant within a few months itself. Keith and I thought that it was the right time, so we went ahead with the pregnancy, and my parents were also really supportive of me throughout the pregnancy and childbirth. The problems began once my son was born. About 1 month ago, my son was diagnosed with SID, and our world came crashing down around us. It was terrible knowing that my baby was suffering, but it was even worse knowing that there was very little we could do to help, except go through with the medical treatments and pray for his well-being. I was never a very religious person, but once my son was diagnosed, I turned to religion because I knew what SID meant and the kind of havoc it could wreak in our lives. Our son is supposed to have a stem cell transplant in a couple of weeks, and Keith is the donor, so I'm just hoping it goes well and my son can make it. In the middle of all this, my parents have been the worst and have been demanding that I return the money I had taken from them. 1 week ago, my parents visited me while my husband was not at home, and I could tell right away that they were not here with good news. They seemed very nervous and uncomfortable, which was weird because usually they were excited to play with their grandson. Things had changed after the diagnosis, though, and they had not called or checked up on us the way I had expected them to. In fact, if I remember correctly, their visit 1 week ago was their first visit after the diagnosis, which was strange given their earlier behavior. I thought that they were just trying to process the news as well, but I was proven wrong when, after some small talk, my parents told me that they would require the money back because my baby was not what they expected. When I did not reply, they went on to elaborate and told me that since there was a real possibility that my son would not live for long, they would like their money back because they felt like giving me the money had been a misstep in the first place. To put it plainly, they wanted a refund of sorts because, unfortunately, my only son, who is not even 1 year old yet, has been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease, which means that there is no surety of him living long enough for even his first birthday. I did not know how to respond to that, so I just told them that I had a lot on my plate and I did not want to talk about this at the time, and sent them away. Mostly, I was just shocked and had no idea what to say in a situation like that, which is why I just did not say anything. I probably should have screamed at them and put them in their place, but that would have woken my son up, who was napping. So I dealt with them in the most non-violent and civilized way, which was a lot more than what they deserved. When my husband returned home, I told him about what my parents had asked of us, and even he was at a loss for words. They were the ones who had willingly offered me the money as an incentive to have a child and to help us out with our finances, but now that they had realized that our baby was not the healthy, happy kind that they had hoped for, they wanted their money back. We were outraged, and I did not want to speak to them ever again, so after discussing with Keith, I blocked their numbers and also blocked them on social media. I did not send them any message before that because I did not think it was worth it, but it backfired when, the very next day, my sister called me up to ask me why I had blocked them. She is still living with them, so I guess they are using her as a pawn to get to me, and she is letting them because she needs a roof over her head. At first I told her that it was none of her business, but after she insisted, I ended up telling her what happened and expected her to empathize with me. But instead, she told me how wrong I was for misleading my parents into believing they would have a grandkid to pamper and play with for a long time, but then emotionally wrecking them by breaking the news of the diagnosis and then refusing to even pay them back. I got into an argument with her, which ended with me blocking her as well, because she had said some very problematic things about me and my baby. She had called us irresponsible parents for bringing a defective child into the world without thinking about the repercussions. Everyone in the family knew that we had not planned for a baby during the several doctor visits. We had never been warned about the risk of our baby having SID. Neither Keith nor I had any idea that this could happen because there was literally a 1 in a million chance of it happening, but unfortunately, it did, and we are just trying our best to deal with it. So, I thought it was pretty damned insensitive of them to demand their money back when we were struggling with something so huge. After their phone call, I even called my brother to vent about them, and he agreed that they were being very unreasonable and cruel to me. My son was not a product they had purchased, and were now looking for a refund since it had not worked out for them the way they had wanted it to. Speaking to my brother helped me make sense of things, and for a while, I was able to take my mind off of whatever the situation was with my parents. Unfortunately, they did not let this go, and 3 days ago my parents dropped by yet again, but this time Keith was at home with me. He tried to turn them away at the door, but they were insistent and demanded to see me. I had just put my son down for a nap and was in no mood to talk to them, but they were refusing to leave, so I eventually had to go out to talk to them. They did not even spare a second before they started yelling at me and even accused me of being a thief who had taken their money, and in return, birthed a child who would bring us all nothing but misery. They actually accused me of scamming them and said that if I did not return the money to them, they would call the police on me and make sure I landed behind bars. I did not even bother replying to them and just slammed the door shut in their faces because there was not much I could say to something as horrible as that. If they were going to call me a scammer for just giving birth to my child, then they did not even deserve a reply. They refused to go away still and kept shouting outside of my house until Keith threatened to call the police and have them escorted off the premises. They finally went away after that, but unfortunately the bullcrap did not end there. Yesterday, my sister texted me through her friend's phone and told me that I needed to return the money, or else she would really sue me along with our parents. I told her to go right ahead and block that number, but in the evening she texted through another number and said a bunch of things to blackmail me into feeling bad. Apparently, I was cruel and heartless for scamming our parents, and I had taken advantage of their age and kindness by taking the money from them, and now by refusing to return it after they practically begged me to. I wish I was there when this begging had happened, because to my knowledge, they had only demanded what was no longer theirs. Also, my parents are not poor. They could afford to spend $30,000 on us having a kid, and that is why they did so. They retired a couple of months ago after successfully running their own business, and they are making money off of it even now. I had never asked them for the money. They had offered it themselves, so now they could not go back and pretend to be the victims of some scam. I told my sister to back off once and for all because I really did not want to ruin my relationship with her. And I knew for a fact that she was only going to such lengths because my parents were manipulating her into doing so. She did not have a stable job yet, and that is why she was so desperate to have a place to live in, which is why I could still forgive her. But I was kind-hearted, not a fool who would take her back regardless of how much she insulted me. She had already insulted me badly enough for me to never want to speak to her again, so it would be in her best interest to back off, because after our parents passed away, we were the only ones she would be able to count on as family. Anyway, that is not the point right now. After that text, she replied to me and told me that I was the one who was making my parents miserable, and that they were already going through a lot knowing that their grandkid might not make it, while I was making it worse by refusing to return the money they had spent on his birth. I could not believe the audacity of that, when I was literally a mother who could lose her child, but somehow, even now, they were the victims here and not me. I called my brother to talk about it, and he told me that at this point I should just return the money to get them off my back. I cannot do that because there are a lot of medical expenses to cover, given the stem cell transplant that is about to take place in a few weeks from now. I have many more things to think about right now, and I honestly do not think that my parents even deserve to have that money back. Point blank, I just do not feel like they should get that money back ever at any point in their lives after the way they have treated me. I do not know if that makes me right or wrong in this situation, because I know it is probably not very ethical, but then again, nothing that my parents have done is ethical either. The bottom line is that even if I could, I would not want to return that money to my parents simply out of spite and the way that they have behaved with me. They have said the most unforgivable things a parent can say about their own grandchild. A grandkid they insisted we have, by the way. So I just do not see any reason as to why I should pay them back, even if it is the morally right thing to do. I cannot make them suffer the way I am suffering right now, but I can at least bother them like this, and I know it is petty, but right now I do not care. My son is in a life-threatening situation, and all they care about is their money, so they deserve to be treated badly in my opinion. Update 1. Firstly, thank you so much everybody, for all your kind words and your prayers. I am hoping it all has its effect. We have been in and out of the hospital for the past few weeks because my son is undergoing chemo at the moment. That is sort of a prerequisite before a stem cell transplant for those who are not aware. The constant hospital visits plus the added harassment that my parents have been putting me through is what made me snap. I have avoided going to the police so far because the last thing I need is a police report to deal with or legalities to take care of just to get my parents to stop bothering us. I know most of you meant well while suggesting that, but it is not very feasible for us right now, so we are trying to keep that on the back burner for now. It is quite literally our very last resort, and we have no intention of taking this to the police as of now. We are too busy and mentally exhausted to even consider it. We have blocked them on every single platform possible, and it has been 3 days since I posted, and they have not tried to contact us as of now, but there is no telling what they might do next. I do not have any intention of paying them back because I am still sticking with what I said. They do not deserve it. I know some of you guys might disagree with this, but I honestly do not care anymore. Most people thought that I was in the right because they were the ones who pushed me to have a kid in the first place, and now they are mad because our son was not the healthy baby boy they wanted. They can cry me a river, but I refuse to feel bad for them and lean into their self-victimization. We are the ones who are suffering because we see our son as a real human being and not as a plaything that we can just discard if it is not good enough by our standards. I do not know what kind of people my parents are, but they do not fit into my definition of good parents anymore. They are the worst because they have put me down at my lowest, and I am sure this will come back to them at some point in their miserable little lives or whatever is left of it. I do not even feel guilty saying any of this now because the comments have made me realize just how screwed up my parents were. Even my sister said some unforgivable crap, but I was ready to cut her some slack just because I thought she was a kid and needed mom and dad to be on her side. But I take that back now. She is a selfish brat, and I think 21 is old enough to be able to tell apart right from wrong, so there is absolutely no reason for her to be acting this way towards me, especially when my husband and I have been nothing but kind to her all along. My brother is super disappointed and has cut them all off along with us, which is something I am really and truly grateful for. He and my husband are pretty much the only people who have kept me going because things have been just so incredibly hard for me mentally. No parent is ever prepared to learn that their kid might not make it, and to face it all while my own family is harassing me for money is just unimaginable. The cruelty and heartlessness have taken their toll on me, but I have to stay strong for Keith's sake and my son's. The transplant is supposed to take place in just 2 weeks, and we have been nervous like never before. My husband is the donor, and he is a wreck. I have literally never seen him so jittery before. He already has an anxiety disorder, and the crazy situation we are in right now has just made matters worse for his nerves. My parents knew about this, but that did not stop them because that is how awful they are. I hope this comes back to them tenfold because otherwise I will pretty much lose all faith in the justice of the universe. Update 2. Hi everyone. My brother called me today to inform me that our parents, along with our sister, had visited him now that I had blocked them and had threatened to call the police on them if they bothered us again. They were there to tell him how I had scammed them out of $30,000, but my brother had been very quick to shut it down. He informed me that he chewed them out, and they had not expected him to be so brutal and harsh with his words. My brother is the calmest guy ever to exist, so if he is being brutal with someone, they have definitely earned it. He hates confrontation, but he told me that after he heard the way Mom and Dad were talking about me and my son, he could not just sit back and let them get away with it. Unfortunately, my parents thought that it would be a good idea to argue, and my sister even tried to back them up, so they had to be unceremoniously evicted from my brother's house by his wife. My sister-in-law is a bit of a hothead, but only when the situation calls for it, and this time she knew the situation was dire and she needed to step up and push them out. She had not even wanted to let them in at all. But our whole family has a soft spot for my younger sister. However, she is really not that young anymore and cannot expect to get away with her horrible behavior. My sister-in-law was very nice to me on the phone since my son's transplant procedure takes place tomorrow, but she will not be able to be there for us. Someone has to stay home and watch the kids, and her usual babysitter bailed on her. My brother is coming along with me though, so I am hoping that things will be fine. I am nervous, but it is nothing compared to what my husband has been going through. Keith is still a nervous ball of stress, but I am doing my best to keep him calm so no unforeseen complications arise. I do not know if that is even possible, to be honest, but at the moment I am not willing to take any risks. We talked just a couple of hours ago about how we had never seen any of this coming, but we are still dealing with it a lot better than we had expected. We had not even planned on becoming parents, but yet here we are, and if fate is on our side, we will be parents for a really, really long time. I know I have said this before, but please continue to pray for our son's well-being, also Keith's, because he is going through a lot too. I have to be up and about in a few hours, but I have become a bit of an insomniac, which is why I am posting this so late at night. I guess this is one of those things I will have to get used to eventually. Update 3. Hi, thanks for the prayers and good wishes. It has been close to 3 months since the transplant, and he has been responding well. I will keep this update short because we are still busy with a lot of work, including the restraining order I have had to file against my parents and my sister after they started harassing me and cyberbullying me recently. Yes, they are really the worst of the worst. Update 4. More than 1 year has passed since the last update, and I will be honest. I had pretty much forgotten because I got too caught up with my own life. My son celebrated his first birthday 1 week ago, and we think he is going to live a long, long life now. He is doing just fine. His body is responding well to the procedure, and we could not be more grateful for it. My parents and sister have had no contact with us since we filed that restraining order, and neither has my brother heard from them. We intend on keeping it that way for the rest of our lives because I do not think anyone needs them or their negative energy around their families. I do not care whether they even live or not at this point. They are as good as gone to me right now. My only family is Keith, my brother, his family, and of course my darling little son. I literally do not care about anyone else because these are the people who stood by me in my toughest times, and I know I can always count on them in the future. Also, you guys, because some of you had continued to check up on me through comments and messages, and I will be forever thankful for that. It really was heartwarming for me to realize that people had continued to pray for my son and our little family, so thank you so much. Here is a heartfelt, emotional closing segment written in the voice of the original poster, OP. Continuing naturally from Update 4, it captures her reflections, lingering pain, healing, gratitude, and final sense of peace, in the same raw, honest Reddit style. Final update. The chapter I never wanted to write, but the one I'm finally glad to close. It's December 31st, 2025 tonight. My son turned 1 year and 3 months old a few days ago. He blew out the candle on a tiny cake shaped like a dinosaur, his current obsession, laughed until he hiccuped when the frosting got on his nose, and then fell asleep in my arms like the world had never tried to take him from us. Watching him breathe, steady, strong, alive, still feels like a miracle I don't entirely trust yet. Every time he wakes up smiling, every time his temperature stays normal, every time he reaches for Keith or me with those chubby little hands, I feel something inside me unclench just a fraction more. But tonight, sitting here with a glass of sparkling cider while Keith snores on the couch and our boy sleeps down the hall, I keep thinking about how close we came to losing everything. Not just him, but us, our marriage, our sanity, our belief that the world can still be kind. I still have nightmares sometimes, not about the hospital, the beeping machines, the endless blood draws. I dream about my mother's face when she said very calmly that our baby wasn't what they paid for. I dream about my sister's texts calling him defective. I dream about my father threatening to call the police on his own daughter because she wouldn't return hush money disguised as love. And every time I wake up gasping, Keith pulls me close and reminds me, they don't get to live rent-free in our heads anymore. They lost that privilege the day they decided a human life came with a return policy. I kept the $30,000. Every cent of it went toward medical bills, co-pays, gas for hospital trips, meals during long nights, the stupid expensive formula he needed while his system was recovering, therapy for Keith, whose anxiety spiked so badly he couldn't sleep for weeks, and a small emergency fund so we never feel that helpless again. I don't feel guilty about it. Not anymore. They didn't buy a grandchild. They tried to buy control. They tried to buy the picture, perfect family they could show off at church and on Facebook. When the picture cracked, they wanted their deposit back. They don't get to rewrite the story. They don't get to pretend they were the victims. And they sure as hell don't get to come near my son ever again. The restraining order is still active. We renewed it. My brother and his wife have theirs too. My sister tried reaching out once through a cousin about 6 months ago. Some half apology that read more like sorry you got offended than actual remorse. I didn't respond. I probably never will. I'm not proud of the spite I felt in those early months. I'm not proud that part of me wanted them to suffer the way we were suffering. But I'm also not ashamed of it anymore. That anger kept me alive when grief and exhaustion wanted to swallow me whole. It kept me from crumbling. When the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally decided I was disposable the second my child became imperfect. I've spent the last year learning, slowly, painfully, that love isn't a transaction. It isn't something you earn by producing a healthy, photogenic baby on demand. Real love shows up at 3 a.m. for fever checks. It learns medical jargon it never wanted to know. It cries in the shower so the toddler doesn't see. It holds your husband's shaking hands before he walks into the operating room to save his son. That's the love I have now. That's the only love that matters. To everyone who prayed, sent messages, shared their own stories of horrible parents, reminded me I wasn't crazy, wasn't greedy, wasn't heartless. Thank you. You carried me when I couldn't carry myself. Some of you are still here checking in a year later. That means more than I can ever say. 2025 was brutal. But it was also the year I learned I could survive losing the family I was born into, and build a better one with the family I chose and the family I made. My son is napping on my chest as I type this. His little heart beats strong against mine. Keith is stirring, probably about to make terrible dad jokes about how we survived the apocalypse together. And for the first time in a long time, I feel something close to peace. We made it. We're still here. And we're never going back. Happy New Year. May 2026. Be gentler to all of us.